ever abused any underage boy?
I never abused nobody. You know, it just sounds crazy to people to say that here you abused me. You know, my thing is, you know all my people back then. You know the hundreds of people that been around me. You know, if something like that happened, why you never want to? What is the motivation? What is the agenda?
Do you think there is an agenda there?
It's hard to say. You know, you don't know what many of these people are thinking, what is behind it. Some parts I've seen, like it could be shake-ups. You know, certain things people might have wanted.
Illuminati is a thing you need to watch out for. They want to depopulate and slave us so much more. World domination, I'll get into that later. I'm hardcore, fierce and sexy. You're just a hater. You deserve the ridicule because you're an absolute zero. I'm the keeper of the chalice, a rock and roll hero. I'm not an idiot nobody listens to, because I'm not a failure in life like you. Let's talk about Bill Gates and the mark of the beast and the orgies in the streets at the Catholic feasts and Bill and Hillary's human trafficking ring. And George Soros got the money to pay for everything. Socialism is for losers, working for the devil. Chumps that can't fight, they ain't on my level. It takes an evil one to try to debunk and doubt it, so I'd rather die than stop talking about it. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out for the Illuminati.
All right, since it relates to hip-hop, I got to address it. I got to address it because it relates to hip-hop, and I'm a hip-hop artist. I'm a hip-hop legend, an underground rock and roll hero, so I got to address this story. I'm MC Too Tall, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out and you're watching the MC Too Tall show. And Afrika Bambaataa has died at the age of 67 years old. Some are saying he's 68, but the real scoop is his age is 67. And I have to address this. I once looked up to Afrika Bambaataa like a lot of us. In fact, in my song, Yo, I'm MC Too Tall, I give a shout out to Afrika Bambaataa. I say, peace to DJ Red Alert and Afrika Bambaataa. Right? KRS-One, Heavy D, and Supercat Dundada. Right? You remember that. But if you notice, when I uploaded that song to YouTube in recent years, I did the backwards edit, where I say Afrika Bambaataa's name, I edited it backwards, acknowledging that I no longer give homage to him. And in hindsight, his ingredients of what he added to hip-hop would have been added anyway by somebody that didn't molest little boys. And you could talk about his legacy all you want, but he pissed it away by playing with the pisser of little boys. He was a pederast. He was a pedo. And yes, I'm wearing this hat while saying that. And I purposely put this hat on for this particular broadcast to say that. I know I've worn this hat, lots of broadcasts, but I've also worn other hats. But I made it a point to put this hat on just for this broadcast. See, Afrika Bambaataa really was a pedo. Donald Trump is falsely accused by skinny little wimpy-ass twerps on the internet of being a pedo. And those twerps will never back those claims with a punch to my face. Okay? These people are trailer trash that keep feral cats in heat in their house and probably bask in cat piss. They probably walk around everywhere reeking in cat piss, reeking of cat piss, to the point where friends and coworkers have to say, change your clothes. Here's clothes. Put these on and take the ones you're wearing off and either take them to the laundromat or burn them. Those are the kind of people that accuse Donald Trump of being a pedo. Okay? Donald Trump is not a pedo. He's falsely accused of being one. Out of nowhere, by people with no evidence. Afrika Bambaataa really was a pedo. And that aspect, that dimension of his life ruined his legacy. Once that came out in 2016, it was a wrap. It was all over. I did not want to hear another Afrika Bambaataa Soul Sonic Force song. Even though Pow Wow, Biggs, and Globe weren't affiliated with that kind of behavior, Bambaataa was. So that ruins his legacy. It ruins his work with Soul Sonic Force. It ruins everything he did with Zulu Nation. It ruins all those epic parties that he threw back in the 70s and early 80s. It ruined his collaborations with James Brown and John Lydon. It's just... Hi, Daisy. Daisy wants to get in on the act here. Kiss her, Keppy. Okay, sit there with your brother. And now Daisy's mother wants to get in on the act. So, this is Squeaky. And she's purring. Okay, bye-bye, Squeaky. All right, back to live action here. And I'm saying this because some would argue, and they'd have a valid argument to argue this. You know, I can't etch it in stone myself, but those who argue this have a valid point. And their argument is that diddling the kids could be worse than murder. Because when you murder somebody, their life is gone. That's it. The worst of it is over. Now, when you diddle a kid, they're scarred for life. They take that pain, that anguish, that unnecessary burden of self-loathing and carry it into their adulthood. And in some cases, like in those children in the Bronx River projects that he molested, some of them turned into trigger men. So they could subconsciously contrast against the stigma that's often associated with same-sex child molestation. This way, nobody will dare say to them in their adult life, you know, ha ha ha, Afrika Bambaataa did gay shit with you. You know what I'm saying? Look, I'm not being homophobic about this, but you have to understand how these streets are. I didn't grow up in no Bronx River projects, but I spent my childhood in Marlboro projects similar environment. When I moved out of the projects, I lived like literally on the next block over. Okay? So I was right on top of the projects anyway. I would go into the projects and date girls that lived in the projects. And the mentality of that street and project life is they pick on people who have been abused by same-sex adults. It just falls into place that way. I didn't create that environment, but that environment exists. And some of these people, as a coping mechanism, become hardened. They fight with people. They get into a gun culture. They tote guns, shoot guns, kill people. Now, if the person's a killer, you wouldn't dare make fun of them for and associate them with being the one thing they don't want to be associated with. Follow what I'm saying? And so this could have been avoided if Afrika Bambaataa was avoided. But gullible children don't know not to avoid somebody like Afrika Bambaataa. How many children are lured into vans and things like that? I mean, it's a shame that it's so, but it's become cliche. You know, the infamous blank van with the driver promising the child that there's candy inside or puppies or whatever. Replace that puppy with hip-hop records and a space to learn breakdancing and stuff. A sense of belonging, you know, to the universal Zulu nation. And a protege of Mr. Biggs got on YouTube right around the time when the controversy broke out. And he said this story that Afrika Bambaataa took the Black Spades money, took money from them, went to Africa, started his monstrous activities over there, learned a little bit about Zulu culture, then came back home and created the Zulu nation just to pick and choose. He compared him to a reverse drug dealer, like a drug dealer will sell drugs or whatever, and then take the money from selling drugs to invest in a hospital or something like that. Like kind of like in the movie King of New York. He takes something negative and the money from that negative to do a positive. Afrika Bambaataa created a positive just so he could do a negative. He created the Zulu nation just so he could pick and choose his favorite children to molest. And I think the video's still on YouTube. My dude's rolling up a blunt and telling the story, and I think he referred to himself as Little Biggs, because he was a protege of Mr. Biggs from Soul Sonic Force. And that overshadows Afrika Bambaataa's legacy, doing things like that. Messing around with a young Brazilian man, like a college-age kid in Brazil, trying to mess around with him and then getting stabbed for his troubles. And then some of the Zulu heads calling Hassan Campbell to go assassinate the Brazilian. And then him not doing it because he's piecing shit together, saying, hey, wait a minute. Similar shit like this happened to me. He comes forward with it. They tell him to take the video down about it. And then Ron Savage, B Stinger, comes forward. And he gets the credit for being the first one, when it was really Hassan who was the first one. And then, as the story goes, I wasn't there, so I can't say for sure this happened. But word around the campfire is that Savage took a payout to change the story and say, yeah, I was 15, but I consented. No, you didn't. You're under the age of consent. So if you're consenting while you're 15, you were seduced and duped into doing what you did. Okay? You were not a willing participant if you were under the age of consent. So if you were 15, you were under the age of consent, you were taken advantage of. But, whatever. And I don't think I should get yelled at or screamed on for this. I'm just piecing it together the same way as somebody like Starr would piece something together. Only shout out to Starr. He's a little bit more thorough with this. He's been following it a lot longer and more intently than I have. I got so disgusted with it that after a while I just walked away from it. And it's like, you know what? This is their thing. Let them deal with it. And we visited 10 years later, after the death of Afrika Bambaataa, and it wasn't really dealt with. It wasn't really fully dealt with. There were no repercussions. No prison time, no lawsuits, no nothing. Probably some hush money got thrown around the place, who knows? But that's not confirmed. Basically, the Bronx River Project's version of Jimmy frickin' Savile got to go out like Jimmy Savile without having to pay any consequence, any real tangible consequence for what he's done. There are mad adults out there, 40s, 50s, 60s even, scarred for life. Some of them sitting in jail because they had to show how manly they were after they were touched on, abused, and played with by a same-sex adult when they were a child. I mean, doing sexual stuff to a child screws that human being's head up for life. For life. They spend the rest of their lives trying to reason with what happened, trying to put together what happened, when ultimately it was just some fucking sicko that couldn't keep his hands to himself. There I go cursing again. I'm trying not to curse. I want to get syndicated, and can't do that if you're cursing all the time. And a lot of these Zulus are active donators to Democrat candidates. Gee whiz. Crime runs rampant because of the Democrats, huh? So many levels of hell where belong the left. And I'm not going to be that guy to say rest in piss. But I wouldn't condemn anybody who does say that. They were probably touched by Afrika Bambaataa when they were young. And it would definitely be their right and their place to say something like that. I'm telling you, these people that say put respect on his name, put respect. Dude was a pedo. And I'm saying that wearing my MAGA hat. Afrika Bambaataa was a pedo and Donald Trump is not. So, with my MAGA hat, I say Afrika Bambaataa was a pedo. And I could say it's a damn shame because all the positivity that came from this, that, and the other thing. The only thing to that is the reason why a statement like that would have holes in it is because of Little Big's statement that he did it just so he could pick and choose, just so he could put himself in a position to be surrounded by little kids. Remember the story I told you of the 25-year-old dude that cosplays and as a female and is supposed to be trans or non-binary, and he gained the trust of parents to watch their kids and ended up raping an infant? See? Babysitter. Former mayor of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He was a counselor. He put himself in a position to be around little kids or adolescent boys. Okay? This one, Afrika Bambaataa, he created a whole community just to lure in little boys. So his legacy was founded on ill intent. Unlike DJ Kool Herc, unlike Grandmaster Flash, who did it for the love of music and community, Afrika Bambaataa created a community just so he can lure in little kids to take advantage of. And that's why I edited out Afrika Bambaataa's name in my song Yo, I'm MC Too Tall. Ding Ding Dope was another nod toward the Soul Sonic Force and Samuel L. Jackson, because there's a verse in there that goes, I take to the streets with furious rage, a renegade of this atomic age. But I didn't directly say his name, so I left it in there when I uploaded it to YouTube. As a matter of fact, when I did upload that song to YouTube, it was before the controversy broke out. Reason why I never revisited it to edit it is because I don't mention his name directly. But Yo, I'm MC Too Tall, I edited his name right out of there. I play the name backwards. But you'll hear it, the difference from the SoundCloud version to the YouTube version. The song's called Yo, I'm MC Too Tall. And in versions 3.0 and 3.1, I don't even do the third verse at all in those versions. So I did my part in disavowing him. And I'm not going to suddenly pay homage and talk about being all sad about him now. I mean, there are some people that may have heard a little something and think it's false. You could do that until you find out the truth. There are some people that don't know about that at all. There are still people that are unaware of this whole controversy with Afrika Bambaataa. And they play his music and they say, what a great man, what a great producer, what a great community organizer, what a great this, what a great that. But if it was done with ill intent, it all means nothing. Nothing. So, Afrika Bambaataa, born Lance Taylor, sometimes called Kevin Donovan, dead at age 67. Lord have mercy on that wretched soul. Respect God. Watch out for the Illuminati. Like, follow, share, comment, subscribe, stay strong, keep kicking that slang. It's your boy in the building, hip-hop legend, recording engineer, underground rock and roll hero, your hardcore, fierce, and sexy host that is never gross, MC Too Tall. You be safe out there.